Navigating love and relationships is complex for all of us, and it seems like it's something that is a big challenge for many of us. But for people living with a disability, the journey can come with additional layers of challenges and unique dynamics. And persons living with disabilities usually have to face social perceptions, also accessibility barriers, but also there are issues around self-worth, independence, and intimacy that are sometimes misunderstood. We open up an important conversation about love, connection, and partnership through the lens of disability. How do partners build understanding, equality, and empathy? How do we begin to challenge the stereotypes that still surround persons with the disabilities and their right to love fully and be loved in return? We're joined by Nobathembu Peter, our friend here on the show. We've had her so many times on the show, so it's always cool having on the show to open up our minds when it comes to conversations around persons with disabilities. Nobathembu is a road accident survivor living with a disability, a wonderful social media influencer, and also a model. We're also joined by Professor John Ganle, who is a lecturer in the Department of Population and Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. Thank you both for joining us there on the line. Nobathembu, welcome back on the show.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Yeah, we missed you. We were like, we need to get Nobathembu back on the show. Let's talk a little bit about this conversation today, because love belongs to everybody, but there are a lot of stereotypes and taboos that have to do with loving someone with a disability. And a lot of people think those things usually there are limitations around loving someone with a disability, but that's also a big stereotype that we have.
Totally, especially within the Black community, when you decide to have a relationship with someone who has a disability, it's almost like you settling for less, or you are choosing the worst option. So,
Nobathembu, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let's talk a little bit about the stereotypes that you see in communities. What are the things that stand out for you when it comes to you having a relationship with someone? What have you navigated around some of the big issues?
The first one is obviously questioning my worth. They're like, whoever decides to be in a relationship with me is settling for less, or they just choosing me because I'm the last option. There's nothing else better for them out there. And also the behavior towards people in relationships with disabled people. It's like you are doing them a favor. So a non-disabled person can't be in a relationship with a disabled person without questioning why are they with them in the relationship, or why do they choose them and not a non-disabled person. So it's a really complex, and it's in our faces because we see it in television when they have dating shows. Like, why are disabled people not included? Are we not desirable? Are we not attractive? Why are we not chosen, or why are we not an option? So it really goes back to what is out there, what are people exposed to, because people react to what they are exposed to. If they're not exposed to interabled relationships, then it does not make sense for them to naturally choose to be in a relationship with someone with a disability.
Yeah. And I'm sure some of the stereotypes around sex, right? Like, how am I going to have sex with someone with a disability? I know even when I ask you that question, someone like, how dare you ask her that? It has nothing to do with it. And that's the thing. People with disabilities are sometimes desexualized, as if you don't have the same sexual desires as abled persons.
Totally. And you know, this is one of the questions that I get the most on social media. They would ask me, so as a person with a disability, can I even feel it? Can I even have sex? Like, how
Hmm.
do I do it? And I'm like, what do you mean? I
Yeah,
do it like every other
sure.
human being. At the end of the day, I'm a woman just like any other woman. I have needs, I have desires. And I mean, I'm a sexual being at the end of the day. So it really shows that there's a lack of advocacy and there's a lack of awareness around this topic.
Let's bring in Professor John Ganle, who is a lecturer in the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. Professor Ganle, thank you for also joining us. And it's an interesting take, this one, because there is a dehumanization that we do as abled people towards persons with disabilities, especially when it comes to romantic relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And but of course, just to point out that the burdens are quite not the same for men and women, and I think she's already pointed out, especially for women, what it actually makes. You know, so we've often kind of there's a whole relationship between, you know, love and beauty and all of that, and so for a woman with a disability, especially if it's a physical disability, of course, there's a question about, is this beautiful, right? And that's where you start to have a problem, because then it's like, well, if you can't find beauty in there, why do you bring the person up for a beauty show, for example? And then that's where you start to see the whole desexualization coming up, because then we have somehow joined, you know, sexuality with physicality and all of that. And I think that's for women, that's like a double burden. Of course, it's not necessarily the same for men. At least in our research, men are a little bit more, you know, and pardon, if you like, to use the word loosely. But generally, for women, that becomes a really big burden. And so when somebody then approaches, if a man approaches you, then it's like, well, you're trying to do a favor, or like she said, you become like the last option and not really something that has been genuinely sort of developed, you know, in terms of love relationship. Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back to both of you. And we're speaking about navigating love and relationship as a person with disability. We're joined by Nobathembu Peter, a road accident survivor living with a disability, social media influencer. In fact, she is one of the coolest influencers. Follow her on her Instagram. That is Royalty on Wheels. That's ROYALTI. That's how royalty is spelled there. Royalty on Wheels, and she's a fantastic influencer. We'll continue the conversation with both of our guests after this break.
It's 21 minutes past 9 Central Africa time. We're having a conversation about navigating love and relationship for persons living with disabilities. And in case you don't know, July is actually International Disability Pride Month, which is a great time to also raise awareness and have conversations about how persons with disabilities navigate normal everyday life, as we all do. We still have on the line with us Nobathembu Peter, road accident survivor living with a disability. She's also a social media influencer and a model. We also have with us Professor John Ganle, lecturer in the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. It's good to hear different perspectives. You know, Nobathembu, as a person living with a disability, explaining to us how she as a woman also navigates the space of love and relationships. Let's bring in a new voice into the conversation. We got a voice note from Richard Ndindwa, who's an SABC employee, a male living with a disability, and he has this to say on this conversation.
Good morning. You know, on your topic that you're talking about of a person with a disability, how I navigate love relationships and experiences that I've seen, to me, it's almost like the same thing that everybody experiences. Yes, there are those who are curious, who wants to know certain things, like how do you do, you know, your sexual intercourse and all those things. And sometimes it's much more easier if you try to explain to people, especially when they have good questions, because some it's difficult to differentiate between the different types of disabilities. And when they see you on a wheelchair, they would presume that maybe you cannot do anything. But sometimes it's easy for me because I just open up and just explain to them, yes, I've been through some relationships. Some were good, some were bad. Some were, people were lacking the knowledge of doing certain things. But you always compromise and try and give a person a lesson. And you being open and talking about it, it becomes much more easier, and expressing how you would like things to be done and which things you cannot perform, or in what ways you cannot perform certain things because of your disability. So yeah, it's been one of those things, but it's an up and down thing that happens. And even now, even at this age, you still get people asking you questions, and even from, as a man, even other men would even ask you, like something like that, as to how do you get kids and all those things. It's like it's a normal thing somewhere, somehow, but it's just a matter of trying to educate and giving them the opportunity to understand, and you show them some other perspective of your side. And you get women who wants to experience, just have fun with you, and you get those challenges, because they are, I'd say they are inquisitive to know and maybe have the experience, and maybe they tell their friends, who knows?
Yeah, thank you so much, Richmond Ndindwa, for that particular voice note. And I think it's a great perspective to bring in the conversation as a man who's also navigating relationships and love, living with a disability. Nobathembu, he mentioned something that's quite, interesting there about people who see a relationship or love or a sexual relationship with someone living with a disability almost like it's an experiment. I just want to experience what it's like. Sure. Is that something that you would say is a regular experience of yours?
Yes, it's quite common, but I believe that men who have approached me, they haven't openly said that they are exploring, but you get to see in their attitude or in their behavior, this person is not being genuine. They're just trying out, because I've heard some rumors or things where people say that having sex with a disabled woman is quite, mind blowing because apparently we are flexible. I don't know. That's what they say. But yeah, like people have all these myths and theories about having sex with a disabled person, that it's different than non-disabled people, and it's crazy. It's crazy, the things that I've heard. And sometimes I can just laugh about it because, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Dr. Ganle, there are two types of relationships that we can look into. Those with two persons with disabilities getting into a relationship with one another, and those where, an able-bodied person gets in a relationship with, someone with a physical disability. But we usually leave out those people with maybe mental disabilities and other forms of disabilities in a conversation like this. Are you there, Dr. Ganle? Okay, it seems like we've lost Dr. Ganle. Okay, are you there?
Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I was sorry. So that's a really important point, especially within the African continent. I think, yes, there are different grades of disabilities, and I think mental disability is really one of the areas that when it comes to relationships, sexual relationships, it becomes extremely difficult to kind of like engage. There's a whole lot of shaming in that space, and so your partner has a mental health issue and is like, no, I don't want to get closer. So that becomes the starting point. There's a whole lot of that shaming that you really don't want to be like there. And that comes from a misguided fear that, well, maybe if I get into that kind of relationship, I might end up with kids that have mental health issues. And so I really want to stay back. And so that becomes a real barrier for people who are experiencing some form of mental health disabilities when it comes to engaging in meaningful sexual relationships. Of course, there are also times that they are not too sure what their partner would probably reactions would be in a certain sort of environment. For example, in the public, they are not entirely sure whether, for example, you can actually go out and hang out, or things would just go the other way, and then everybody's like, oh, this is how this couple is. So there's a whole lot of fear, some of it not necessarily well informed, and so that kind of like brings in some barriers to sort of building relationship with people who are having mental health challenges in their communities.
All right. Unfortunately, I mean, this is such an intriguing and interesting conversation to have, and a very informative one as well, to really understand and navigate that with everybody, we all need love, we all experience love, and we all have desires of love, sexual desires and interests in one another. And it should be no different for persons living with disabilities. I would like to thank and appreciate both of you for joining us in this conversation. Nobathembu Peter, road accident survivor, social media influencer. She is at Royalty on Wheels on Instagram and her other social media platforms. Do follow her, very informative. She raises a lot of awareness and she's quite fun. She's got a beautiful big smile there as well. And Professor John Ganle, lecturer in the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's 9:30 Central Africa time. You can tell us your views on this conversation, of course, on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1. Let's get our latest sports news.